23 books, all bestsellers, 2 Pulitzer Prizes. It's no surprise journalist and author Bob Woodward is making headlines once again. He talks with our David Martin.
Throughout the war in Ukraine, Vladimir Putin has rattled his nuclear saber, and the U.S. has dismissed those threats as reckless.
That kind of rhetoric is very dangerous and unhelpful. Nobody wants to see a nuclear war happen. It's a war that, where all sides lose.
But in the fall of 2022, as Russian forces were retreating, U.S. intelligence warned if it turned into a rout, Putin might very well resort to nuclear weapons.
The intelligence community concluded that there was a 50% chance, and that scared everyone.
It is perhaps the most dramatic moment in Bob Woodward's latest book, War.
It's about the Ukraine war, the war in the Middle East, and it's also about the war for the American presidency.
In his patented style, Woodward takes us inside the room when Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin placed a high-stakes phone call to the Kremlin.
This is an astonishing moment. Secretary of Defense Austin gets the assignment to speak to Shoigu, the defense secretary for Russia.
Woodward reads the words as they were spoken.
Austin says, "We know you are contemplating the use of a tactical nuclear weapon in Ukraine. If you did this, all the restraints that we have been operating under in Ukraine would be reconsidered."
What does Shoigu say?
I don't take kindly to being threatened. Austin said, "I am the leader of the most powerful military in the history of the world. I don't make threats."
After that call, Russia falsely claimed Ukraine was preparing to use a dirty bomb to spread radioactive contamination. The Russian defense minister called Austin back with this warning.
We all have this intelligence that says the Ukrainians are thinking about using a dirty bomb. If they do this, we would consider this an act of nuclear terrorism, and we'd have no alternative to respond.
That sounds like a pretty direct threat to go nuclear. What does Austin say to that?
We don't believe you. We don't see any indications of this. It seems to us like you're trying to establish a predicate for using nuclear weapons.
How do you know those quotes are accurate?
Because there are documents and witnesses.
Did you check it with Austin?
I had to. This is an important moment. As I started reading this, Austin says, "That's accurate. That's accurate."
The Russian retreat did not turn into a rout, and Putin pulled back from the brink. But the war grinds on. And Woodward reports President Biden admitted to National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan Russia's nuclear saber still hangs over Ukraine.
This is a direct quote. Putin is not going to let himself be routed out of Ukraine without breaking the seal on tactical nuclear weapons. So we are stuck.
U.S. intelligence had warned for months about Putin's plan to invade Ukraine, but was blindsided by the October 7th Hamas rampage into Israel. Biden's response was immediate.
If the United States stands with Israel, we will not ever fail to have their back.
But 4 days later, with Israel bombarding Gaza, Biden pushed back when Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu suddenly informed him he was about to launch a preemptive attack against Hezbollah in Lebanon.
What you're about to do is going to guarantee a regional war. You should not count on our support if you preemptively launch a war against Hezbollah.
As civilian casualties in Gaza continued to rise, Woodward writes, Biden's frustrations and distrust of Netanyahu finally erupted.
That son of a bitch Bibi Netanyahu. He's a bad guy. He's a bad effing guy. A bad effing guy.
Israel has now attacked Hezbollah with everything from exploding beepers to 2,000-pound bombs, and Iran has launched 200 ballistic missiles against Israel, leaving the Middle East on the precipice of an all-out war just weeks before America elects a new president.
Whoever gets to be president of the United States is going to inherit a world living on the edge of imploding.
Woodward says former President Trump is not fit to hold the office again.
You're a chronicler of presidents going back to Nixon. Where would you rank Trump?
At the very bottom, because he was always looking out for himself.
Woodward, who is being sued by Trump over his last book, reports in this book that in the middle of the pandemic, then President Trump sent Vladimir Putin some hard-to-come-by COVID test machines.
He gives it to him for his personal use. People are scrambling for tests, and the President of the United States gives a bunch of them to Putin. It's like feeding the neighbors instead while your own children are starving.
Woodward also claims Trump has held as many as 7 phone calls with Putin since leaving office. A spokesman for Trump says none of these made-up stories are true. But last Thursday, a Kremlin spokesman confirmed Putin had received COVID tests from Trump. Both Trump and President Biden refused to be interviewed for this book, but Woodward has talked to many top administration officials.
These are transcripts?
Yes.
So you have all the interviews transcribed?
I do.
It's a long way from meeting his famous Watergate source Deep Throat in an underground garage.
Forget the myths that the media has created about the White House.
I go in, set the tape recorder down. This is on deep background. I'm going to use it all. I'm not going to say where it came from.
Yeah, but if somebody wanted to run an investigation on who talked to Woodward, you've given them a lot of evidence to work with.
But I've done this for 52 years, and no one's ever run that investigation. Why? Because we have a First Amendment.
In those 52 years, he has written now 23 books and seems to have come full circle, dedicating this latest to his Watergate reporting partner, Carl Bernstein.
23 books. Is this your last one?
Never know. Never know.
He's thinking of mining his files for a memoir of his extraordinary career. But he is 81 years old, the same age as Joe Biden, who decided to step aside rather than risk his legacy.
You worry about jeopardizing your legacy with writing another book?
Look, we don't do our business for legacy. We do our business because you know this. Being a reporter is the best job in the world.